Welcome to today's live. Today we are discussing, does eating animal foods make you less spiritual? Does eating meat lower your vibration? What is the consequences of the food that we consume? And what are the different paradigms that we could tap into? Today it is an open discussion, so anybody who would like to join the live, please submit and ask to join. If you want to be brought into the live, we're going to be discussing the topic that was shown on the reel, the video that was posted around the idea of raising your frequency with meat. Is it possible to have a high frequency even though you're eating animal foods, even though you're eating meat? So a lot of people had a lot of objections, and because the comments were so long, there were so many objections, I felt that this was the best platform to come on and to have a live discussion about, so that we can gain clarity. I think that a lot of times people run with information that they see online because somebody else said it, because it's in a meme and it looks nice and it sounds right, but it doesn't necessarily reflect reality. So here we're going to talk about the ins and outs, the intricacies of food, of ecosystem, of spirituality, of the way it all coincides and intertwines with each other. So a lot of people said they were going to come. I messaged them. I don't know if they're going to come and join the live, but regardless or not, we're still going to keep talking about this. So like I said, if you have any objections, come on camera, represent your belief system, be a representative for it, and show people how you think and how you articulate yourself, articulate your belief. And if you can't do that, then I think that there's some flaw in that, because I think what we believe should be very on the tip of our tongue. It should be very simple to us. It should be so programmed in us and so instilled in us that we have no issue discussing it. All right, I got my first person. So Jay King, I'm about to bring you in the room. So just for everybody's sake, this is going to be a respectful discussion. If there's any disrespect, you will be kicked off. I know people get emotional and passionate about these topics, but if there's any disrespect directed at me or anybody in the room, then we're going to have to kick you out of the room, because we're not going to tolerate that here. So with that disclaimer, let me bring you in the room, and that goes for anybody else that wants to come in.
Enough respect, my boy. Enough respect.
Hey, how you doing?
What's up? Peace, man. I ain't got no disrespect for you. I thought, hey, but yeah, I'm on the tip where eat meat do lower your vibration.
Okay.
And I saw your video, and I was like, I didn't know if you were saying. I thought you were joking. I didn't know if you were saying it has nothing to do with it. Don't matter. And because, like, I think from the first time I followed you, you were on that tip too. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But
I share this.
yeah, see,
People know this. That I was vegan. I was raw vegan. Did a lot of experiments. And the thing is,
yeah,
in that video, that's what I was saying. I was saying that, and I'm a proponent that we are the ones that control our frequency. Like the food has nothing to do with it. You might make different choices once you raise your frequency, but the food is not the food's responsibility to raise or lower your frequency. That's something that we internalize, or we do ourselves. So that I was using the logic that people say that plants raise your frequency and put it in a different scenario. So now in that scenario, everybody's like, oh, hold up. No, that's not how it works. And I'm like, why not? Y'all said that organisms concentrate frequency, so why does not apply all of a sudden? So I'm just questioning the logic of the way people think, so that they can actually make decisions for themselves, because I know a lot of people just run with things they see online. It's not necessarily firsthand experience. So for instance, meat is eating consistently throughout all traditional peoples. Like, if I could show you a video right now of current hunter-gatherers who have their life way intact, who consistently eat meat, that's one of their most prized foods. And when you ask them what's the most important thing in life, the number one thing they say is meat. That's from somebody living in nature, close to the land, not a domesticated, civilized person who's been influenced by the internet. That's just like a person out there on the land, actually living life and having that experience. So whenever you look at people like that, it's always the same thing. They're omnivores. They eat meat, but they also access plants. They access different types of nutrition that's available, because in nature, that's the most rational thing that you could do as an intelligent being, is to be adaptable. And the most adaptable thing that you could be is to be omnivore. If you're frugivore or if you're a herbivore, you're limited to certain things. But if you're omnivore, you can access all kingdoms of life for nutrition.
All right, well, my point, my opinion on it is, what I said when we say the vibration and frequency kind of like is a little different. From my experience, what I'm saying is, eating meat, you said it in the video, is dead, and it does, regardless of what the meat ate, the vibration will be, the frequency will be like the source, right?
Okay, so let me ask
Like,
you this: why?
so I kind of not really disagreeing with you, because what you just said through your spiel, you just said you was like, we control our frequency, and we do, but the frequency has like I say a source or a point where it originates from, and it carries through your body. Vibration would be the frequency that you maintain,
Right.
and to me, so consuming meat from what my experience is, consuming meat as opposed to eating from the earth and eating from the earth, organic foods and whatnot.
Yeah, but what does that mean? Everything is from the earth. Like we're on earth. We're not going to other planets to get food. Everything is from the earth. So that's not specific
Well,
enough.
I think I'm pretty sure you're aware of frequency. I'm pretty sure you're aware of like the frequency of vibration or the life that's in fruit as opposed to the life that's not in dead meat that you either cook or, I don't know if you want to eat meat raw,
Yeah, I mean,
whatever.
most cultures do
Goes
practice
through a
some
process.
form
It's
of
just like a battery. Just like a battery goes through a process. I mean, just like us, we got a certain amount of life that we live in. People get old.
right.
So as time progresses, or oxidation or whatever the depreciation of that life or that spark happens, it's crazy to think that fresh picked fruit gonna have the same amount of life frequency of vibration as cooked cow or whatever meat you decide to eat. I mean,
No,
to me, it was obvious.
well, I will argue it has more. But if anything, if we're looking at it from that perspective, like, have you ever subsisted or tried to actually just survive off of fruit?
Have I ever
Yeah,
tried to just
yeah,
survive off of fruit?
because
Yeah,
it's
like,
it's easy to be
I
like,
went a good 6-7 months with like raw. Like I was like I had a different place, and I would literally just go to the produce section and buy distilled water and buy my produce, and I was literally like eating nuts.
yeah, that's
And
what I'm saying. But that whole diet is based off of civilization. Like you need a grocery store to execute that diet. Nothing in nature grows year round.
I don't everything that I got. I put it like everything that I got. I get what you're saying with the seasons and all that, and
Yeah,
that's different. That's
we
like
got mango trees, but they're not sprouting right now.
now.
Like
Yeah,
I can't access that food right now. So it's like the
you
idea
have
that
you have any other fruit going right now?
yeah, there's always something growing, but not in the abundance that
Like
you will find in a
exactly.
grocery store. Is what I'm saying. Like
I mean, yeah, yeah. Like I'm not
you
mad.
can't compare like being able to go to a grocery store and choose whatever you want to nature because that's a whole different. Like most people haven't even experienced that to have that frame of reference. They just thinking that because they go to the grocery store and find the same thing day after day, that makes their diet seem realistic. But when you go out into traditional people who actually live on the land, like they actually they don't go to grocery stores, they live 100% off the land. All of them
You got
throughout the
access.
board are omnivores. They access meat, they access fruits, they access tubers, they access herbs.
That's a choice.
They
That's a
that's what
choice.
I'm saying. So
Like that's a
if you're
choice.
saying
Like
that
they
if you're saying that meat lowers your frequency, then you're saying that you are more in tune in line in a higher frequency to somebody living completely off the land and who has never deviated
no
from their own nature.
no.
So
All right. So give me this.
that
Give
sounds
me.
crazy to me.
Why don't you give me a second, real quick? I'm gonna tell you because I said it first. The frequency is yours. Like what you said, it originates from you. Your frequency that you on is controlled by you. But the state that your body's in, based off of your diet, will control your vibration. It will either maintain your frequency, it will lower your frequency, or it will maintain it. Now, I said this because when I told you that I spent those months on that food, I had experiences that would relate to what what you saying, like more in tune and all that, and growth in that department.
Mhm.
So I'm telling you, based off from my perspective or whatever, what I experienced, it's not like how you thinking that like just because you eat meat, your frequency won't get to a certain place, but it has more to do than just what you eat. But
Right.
meat definitely depreciate. It definitely like it's not even. I don't know how we having the discussion because it's really kind of obvious. Like if you were to pick a mango off the tree when it's in season,
Hmm.
the frequency is different. It's closer to life
What does that
than
mean?
if you were to.
What does that mean in like a term that we can actually calculate, or a term that we can actually use? Because I can say, well, has a higher frequency, and you just saying it has a high frequency, but what does that actually mean? Like,
Do you feel like a mango picked off of a tree is closer to life?
I feel like a walking animal is closer to life. Like that's animate.
Ooh, cool, cool,
That is
cool.
like closer to what I would consider life. It's moving,
Okay,
it's
okay. Let me
reproducing,
let me walk you
it's
through
doing
it.
a
Do
lot
you have
more
an
than a
idea of
mango.
where? Do you do? Good. I'm glad you said it. Do you have an idea? Do you have an idea where your frequency comes from?
Where my frequency,
Whatever the frequency that you refer to, do you have an idea where it comes
what I define as frequency is your level of awareness, and how you're walking around in your reality with what level of awareness. Like, to me,
from? Like so your animation, like you're like being animate or yeah, animate, like animated. Like just
no,
because I'm moving, I got
your
frequency.
mind, your mind. So
Okay,
here's how I break it down. The reason, like, when
right.
somebody comes and say like, oh, food crystals raise your frequency, or food raise your frequency, I already know that they're on what I would call a low frequency, because they're outsourcing their power to something outside of themselves. They're saying that this has the power and I don't have the power. It's this thing that I'm about to take in. That's how the world operates. That's why people gravitate towards herbs. They gravitate towards pharmaceuticals, because they're always looking for something outside of themselves. So
Outside.
the video was to break that illusion, break that spell, and just to question the logic of why people were running with that so easily when they never really thought about it, to a degree that is necessary to gain clear understanding. That's all I'm trying to get people to
Do
see.
you do you eat live animals?
Um, not typically, no. I mean, I could eat an ant,
You ever ate like
an
like
insect.
raw animal?
Yeah,
Hmm?
I ate insects before.
We talking about omnivores. You said meat, so we ain't talking about insects. We're talking
That's
about
that's an animal.
the meat, whatever meat. Okay,
But
okay.
I mean, what's the point you're trying to make with that?
No, I was asking it because you said you feel like an animal that's walking around is more closer to life than picking a mango off the tree.
Well. The thing is you're dealing with two different things. Like, you can't, like, an animal. It has more awareness, so it's gonna try to run away. So in order to eat that animal, you're gonna have to do certain things. The mango's just sitting there. Actually, the mango on the tree is part of the reproductive cycle of the fruit, that it wants to be spread. Right. That's why it's trying to lure people to eat it. Right. But even the soil that tree's growing in relies on death, some form of death. So without that process, we don't have that fruit anyways. So it don't matter how you look at it. Death is an integral part of reality of our life, and you can choose not to do it, but somewhere along the process of any food that you consume, death has played a role in it.
So food, when we eat meat, the food that you talking about when we eat meat has died. It could have been close to life as you wanted to be or the frequency, but before you ate it,
Yeah.
it had been dead for a while, as opposed to, and you said death, is part of life, but then you said the fruit was like a part of a reproductive cycle. So it's not like the fruit came to life and died. The fruit is connected to a living, whatever you want to call a tree.
Yeah.
So it's as if, like, say if you cut your arm off, your arm might be looking, it's like if you cut your hand off, it'll be looking fresh as soon as you cut it off, but eventually it starts to decay, whatever, it dies.
Yeah.
The flesh changes, the blood, the fluid, all that. So if you take that fruit off the tree, the frequency is the last frequency it had. It's not like it's not a part of the fruit.
Okay.
Whereas you don't had a live animal done got killed, processed. Even if not, however you want to play it, you killed it, it died, and then cut a piece of it off.
Okay, right.
There's like no
I get
frequency
what
in
you're
meat.
saying, but look, here's another thing, and I'm
There's
gonna
no
go to the next person
no
because I
vibration.
want to get more people's
Yeah, that's
opinions on
cool.
this. Um, but let me answer this. Yeah, thanks for coming on. I'm gonna answer this and then get somebody else in here. I don't know how you do that. Okay.
He answered the question.
Well, I'm gonna respond to what you just said because I think this is important. This idea that the last thing that a organism feels before it dies is all that organism is, right? Like, so we don't do that for people. When people die, we try to remember everything about them. They were happy, they experienced life, they had their complex emotions. So when we reduce an organism to the last emotion that it felt, to me that feels like you taking away the existence of that organism just because you want to emphasize a certain emotion that you correlate with the thing that it's giving somebody when they eat it. So you want to point that out, but you're not pointing out shit. What if it had a beautiful life? What if it had a beautiful relationship with the plants that it was eating? What if it really embodied and enjoyed its existence? That doesn't get transferred for some reason with that logic. Only the trauma gets transferred. Only the last emotion gets transferred. And I don't believe that, because if anything, we transfer in the whole energy of that animal. That would make more sense to me than just the last emotion. All right, let me bring somebody else in. Hey, how you doing?
Peace, peace.
Peace.
Oh, cool. This is my first time doing one of these. Thank you for holding this discussion. Thank you for holding this space. Thank you to everybody that is here and present and open to what is being spoken. Um, Definitely agree with some of these comments that this is a conversation that's probably going to be going on for many times, but that doesn't mean
Yeah.
that it's not important to have, because we're all in this energy right now together. Um, so for me, I've been plant-based for the last 5 years. It
Okay.
wasn't until this year, when I've been in ceremonial settings, that I have consumed meat. And I wouldn't say that it lowered my frequency or my vibration by having meat at all. If anything, I would honestly say that it has enhanced my vibration in many ways, which I would have never thought I would have said. Like, we all go through those phases. So I've been where, plants and food will raise your vibration. And I
Yeah.
truly do think that. And I do agree with you in the sense that we do have the power. I wouldn't say that me saying plants and fruits and things being able to raise your vibration is giving power away. But I believe that whether it's animal, whether it is the fruits, they all have its own vibration, and they're able to assist us in raising our vibration. The meat industry today, especially in Western society, definitely has a vibration itself that will lower, in many ways, it can lower people's frequencies and vibration, because just the process, the trauma that it has gone through. I
Right.
believe if people are more intentional when it comes to eating whatever it is, even if it is meat, and they're praying over it, because we are divine alchemists as well. So I believe in the power of our prayers, the power of our intention, the power of our words to be able to help alchemize to an extent. I mean, I wouldn't say every day if you're eating and you're just like, okay, take away this pain from the animal, it's a lot of energy
Yeah.
that you have to put into it. But again,
I
I
have a
just
similar journey as you. Um, I was vegan for 5 years, about 5 years before I started consuming animal foods, um, as well. So like that's why I think I'm really interested in this topic, and that's why like I have a lot of insight onto how people think, because I used to think like that, and I still have some beliefs, that overlap. I'm just, like you said, I'm trying to bring people to be more aware and not just kind of run with things just because they saw it online, or just make blanket statements, because I think that's where we go wrong. And
definitely.
to me, it's like, okay, yeah, you should be aware of the kind of meat that you eat, but then you should also be aware of the kind of plants that you eat and where's that coming from and what's your relationship to
Exactly.
that. So I think it's easy to just kind of make it black and white. Well, as long as you eat plants, it doesn't matter how much you eat, or if you're grateful for them, or where you get them, or if they're seasonal. As long as it's not meat, it's all good. And I don't
Hmm.
believe that, because we make conscious efforts in this household, in this community, to source all our stuff locally first, primarily, and what's in
Facts.
season, and to support the local ecology. And then from there, we'll tap into other things. But you know,
Definitely.
so I just don't segregate life in that way of like plant good, animal bad, because I know that there's a use for everything. Like, for instance, right now I'm doing a juice cleanse. I'm doing a liquid fast. So I'm definitely not on the tip of like, oh, eat as much meat as you can. I'm just trying to bring people to an awareness, but I tap into all these different things because I believe they're tools. Like, I believe that you
Definitely.
can do different things for different situations and not just live life like monochromatic, like where you're doing the same thing year round regardless of what's happening, because we know when
Yes.
a woman is getting ready to give birth, it's a different reality than when she's not pregnant. So we
Yes.
have to adjust for these different situations, and that was traditional knowledge has always shown. And a
Yes.
lot of animal foods were prized during conception and during reproduction, for that reason. So I think that when we
Definitely.
demonize it before we truly understand it, that we can miss out, on
Yes.
something that has been traditionally beneficial.
Bless. Thank you. Yes, I completely agree with you. And I'm grateful again that you're bringing this discussion because it's just another way that there's a lot of division in the community. And, oh,
Yeah.
your frequency's low because you eat this or that. And it's really, it's just
Right.
another way, I think, a divisive mechanism that's taken place, especially with there being such a huge veganism movement, which of course has its pros, but there's a lot of cons as well, like you're saying. Being able to really hone in and focus on the ecological aspects of these and realizing like all of the soy plantations and different things that are taking over rather than letting nature and the indigenous communities do their natural being able to tend to the lands in the way that are meant to, being able to tend to it seasonally, like you were also mentioning before, and really just understanding that connection with meat. Definitely for pregnancy, I've seen pros and cons with women who they stated they wanted to have an alkaline or a raw
Mm,
vegan pregnancy, but you really the vibration of the babies and different things you might need that bone marrow broth, for the
right.
temple, and that's always has been things that have been traditionally passed on. So I just wanted to hop on again just to say thank you, share
No.
my point of view as
Yeah.
well, and just to assure others that are out there who may be on the sideline, because I know some people who have been hearing the call to want to return to maybe eating meat, but they feel like I've already been vegan for this long or plant-based for this long, or I don't want to receive
Right.
judgment. It's like, listen to your body. Your frequency isn't going to become lower because you consume this, right? It's
Yeah.
all about that joy, that intention, that understanding of how the cycles of Mother Earth works. And yeah, just not to be demonized in that way, because that's definitely one thing that's always frustrated me, because I've met people, I'm in, where I'm at right now, they are very connected to the earth and they're very in tune with the abundance of the fruits and vegetables and the herbs, but they do consume meat here. But I
Right.
wouldn't say that all the people around me have low frequencies. That would be
Right.
so silly. So for
Yeah, I'm glad you
definitely
said that.
trying
I'm
to
glad you
rid of
said
that
that.
mindset, because they're so in tune with spirit in ways that I have never witnessed,
Yeah.
and because of that understanding. And again, our animal relatives, they're here to guide us and they're here to teach us, and they're here for us in many ways. So I think it's important to still be a voice for them in all aspects. And yeah, just really returning to that essence and connection to plants and to animals, because they've been here before us, so they're here to just continue to guide us and be
Yeah.
in
And
this
and many of them
symbiotic
didn't haven't.
relationship.
Yeah, and many of them haven't deviated from their nature. They're still very much in tune to that. So I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned from that. But yeah, I'm glad you said the point about kind of like liberating people, because I felt like I was under this enchantment as well, like under the spell of like, well, for me at one point it was cooked food because I was raw vegan, And then when I went vegan, it became animal foods. So I was like so skeptical to even eat a morsel of something that I didn't think was going to benefit my body. And then throughout my journey, I realized that things that affected me and brought the most growth and development wasn't even food. It had nothing to do with food. And so it led me to the realization that we put so much emphasis on the food that we eat, and that we forget the other aspects of our life that we need to develop, that are going to help us grow more exponentially. And then the food is not even going to be that big of an issue. We always want to be conscious about it, but I think we can tend to scapegoat everything to the food when there's a lot more healing to be done in other areas of our life.
Definitely. I should.
Yeah. Thank you
Thank
for coming
you.
on.
Blessings. Thank you. Thank you to
Yeah,
everyone here, and peace. Take care. Keep doing what you're doing, sharing your life, your energy, and many blessings to you.
you as well. Thank you. I'm grateful.
Peace.
Okay. Okay, it's because they changed this up now. Okay, there we go.
Hi, peace, peace.
Hey,
How are you?
peace. Good. How are you doing?
I tapped into your live because I follow the queen that just left the live. I'm
Okay.
now studying herbalism, and I saw your title. It says, "Does eating meat make you less spiritual?" I wouldn't say that. Okay, so how can I put this? You got to understand, like, when you consume meat, you got to understand what that animal went through to get to your plate. So you
Hmm.
got to understand that they had to go through a certain torture, a certain low vibrational state before it got to your plate. And if you notice that when you eat pork or you eat beef or chicken, you feel heavy, your stomach hurt a little bit, you might even have a bad session in the bathroom. But I just feel like eating meat kind of does lower your frequency just because it's heavy. So you're not like, and I feel like eating vegetables and herbs and finding remedies for yourself is better than going to the grocery store and getting a slaughtered animal. You know, everything that we need to heal and nourish ourselves is literally growing in our backyard. Look at behind you.
Hmm.
It's nothing but life. You could turn
Yeah.
around and make a whole remedy. You get what I'm saying? So I wouldn't say it makes you less spiritual, but I can say it has a definite effect on the frequency for sure of
Yeah.
your
Well,
body.
I would say that hasn't been my experience with meat.
And somebody
And
said that veganism was the new world order. How could life be the new world order?
yeah, yeah. I mean, everybody has their opinions, right? So, like, what you're sharing with
Grocery
me
store.
is your opinion.
For sure.
Don't read the comments because everybody's saying a lot of stuff. But here's the thing: like,
Yeah.
we can't project our experience onto other people. So when you say statements like meat does this, right? I'm like, that hasn't been my experience. But because I've eaten, like, here it's popular to eat raw fish, and if you get fresh raw fish, I do not feel heavy at all, even if I eat it with
Oh
a knife.
yeah, no. That
But
part I
conversely,
understand.
but
I understand
conversely,
fish.
you
Yeah.
can
Go
eat
ahead.
also animal foods. I mean, plant foods, and feel that. Because, like, if I eat a bunch of rice and beans, I'm gonna feel bloated. Like, that's just how
Oh, for
my stomach
sure.
doesn't digest those two things together well.
So do you
But
when you eat plants and fruits and stuff, do you feel like that? Because you know that our body is, we're supposed to eat. Our body is H320. It's not H2O. So we're supposed to consume fruits, vegetables, and stuff like that. We're not, well, but again, this is my own opinion. And this is just all the things that I'm learning on my
right.
journey. That, you know, like our bodies are supposed to have more water, more fruit, more vegetables, and stuff like that. And just me studying the herbalism, the herbs that I am, by the way, if you guys grab this book.
Mm.
The herbs that I'm studying and just the courses that I'm about to take, it's just, I feel like meat, like what I've learned is just like meat is kind of low vibrational, and that's just my opinion. I
How
just feel
long
like
are you vegan?
I'm pescatarian, so that's why I was agreeing with
How
you when it
how
comes to
long have
fish.
you done that?
I stopped eating meat last June.
Okay. Okay. So I was vegan, strict vegan for 5 years. I was raw
Mm,
vegan for 2.5 years. I've fasted for 40 days twice. I know about herbs. I know about cleansing the body. I have a lot of experience with that. So
for
whenever
sure.
I speak, it's like that is always a part of the equation, and my experience is what has led me here. So I didn't want to walk into this path consciously. Like, life has kind of made me see things through experience, like having my son and seeing childbirth and the toll that that took on a woman, and all these different variables has kind of led me to change my stance on a lot of things. But I was very strict about my eating and about herbalism, so I understand that concept, but to me, like, I want to talk to people who have like a lot of experience living that lifestyle, because most of them
So,
are
okay.
on the side of where
I
I'm
feel you.
at. Most of the vegans like that are 5 to 10 years are on this side. Like, somebody just commented they were vegan for 10 years and
So
they're not
time
vegan
matters
anymore.
when it comes to that. Like, does the time matter?
Yeah, yes, because a lot of times when you're on a certain diet, you're kind of still on the residual of your body's built off the food you eat, right? So you can go a certain period of time
A
before your
person that
body starts,
knows, I don't know
but
anything.
but
Like a person that knows everything knows nothing at all. So I'm here to learn. So
okay,
yeah, I shouldn't read the comments.
yeah, there's too
A
many,
person that
there's a
knows
lot of
everything
opinions.
knows nothing at all. I'm open minded and I'm learning. I'm open.
Okay, so check this out. Your body, every single cell in your body is being constructed off the food that you consume. So a lot of times when people start eating a different type of diet and they start feeling
Yeah,
good, they don't realize that they still have the same body that was constructed off of the animal foods, off of the other foods.
and that's why you
So
detox.
right, but you need an adequate amount of time to be able to say, well, I've built my body on this food. I've reproduced on this food. My ancestors ate this food, and so I know that this is a viable food. We don't have enough evidence or enough those situations with the current diets that are being promoted, like veganism, raw veganism, to be able to make the conclusion that that is an adequate diet. Like, you have to go through that process. So what I'm talking about, conscious omnivory, is been tested through time through all of our ancestors of every single culture that has been studied traditionally. So if we rely on that, that makes a lot more sense to me, and I can trust that because the foundation of that goes way back and is strong. But a lot of these new movements around diet are based around the grocery store, which is a new development. You get slavery, you get civilization, and then you get grocery stores that concentrate resources so that people can go inside and get the same thing day after day. That is a artificial reality. It's not,
Hmm.
and all those fruits and vegetables, by the way, 99% of them have to been cultivated and had to been altered to become what they are today. They're not the wild forms that exist in nature. That is a different concept. There's more medicine in nature in the fruits and less calories. So you have to eat way more of it in order to get the calories that you would get from the grocery store vegetable. That's why things are so out of balance and people are sick, because they're eating
Have
fruit.
you heard of RNA?
Yeah, I know RNA,
That's
messenger
that's the
RNA.
all the stuff that they put in the grocery store, all in our meat, all in our vegetables, all in our fruit. I just don't agree with. I mean, of course, I have to go to the grocery store because for some water or something like that. But when it comes to like growing my own food and just coming up with my own stuff, I feel like that's better because the whole grocery store is full of stuff to kill us. It's a whole agenda.
Oh, absolutely. You got it. The best thing that you can do is have the direct relationship with the food that you eat. And to me, that doesn't matter what kingdom of life it comes from. But
Tap
if you
into
know where,
self.
but if you know where it came from and you went through that process, I believe that that's kind of the part of even digestion. Before digestion, you harvest. Like, that whole process that leading up to you eating starts way before you
Cutting him
even
off.
put that in your mouth.
Yeah,
So,
but peace,
but
King. Have a beautiful day. I'm gonna jump back in the comments. Thank you for
okay.
giving me a spot.
All right.
Appreciate
Thank you for
you.
coming on.
Peace.
All right. Peace. All right. Okay, this person left. I was trying to bring him in. Um. Oh wait, no.
Yo, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. How you doing?
What's up, bro?
What up?
I'm gonna step outside so the air is flowing. Um, from
Yeah.
what I've peeped on this live so far, it's all truth. Um, I was not looking to say but to anything or anything at all. Just add into what you're saying, and that spirituality has to always do with alchemy in the first place. Because if we don't know what's on our table, where we're getting stuff from, and what spirits are behind it, how can we ever be spiritual, right? So we're looking at plants and we're looking at animals.
Mhm.
All these different things come from different places in the cosmos, which are attached to different spirits in
Yeah.
the cosmos. So not to get too hot, because I don't know the audience that is currently here right now, but I am going to say that we have to look at it like this, or it's always going to be some type of agenda, some type of agenda that is coming from somebody's spirits, that are on these higher planes, that are, putting us into some type of confusion that leads to more and more
But
cycles. So
right, check
when we
this out
come
though.
from, go ahead, bro.
I was gonna say, to add to that. Even if you grow your own food, check this out. Even a lot of the varieties of the fruits and vegetables that we have, there's already a consciousness that has been put on that. Like somebody took that. Like take for instance the Haas avocado. Why is it called Haas?
Hmm.
Because there was a family called Haas who got this avocado, and they bred it, they grafted it, and they kept growing it because they like that certain variety. So they chose that. So now when you go eat that avocado, you're tapping into their consciousness. That's
There
a
you go.
derivative of their consciousness, right? Conversely, though, if you go to nature, everything in nature, there's so many varieties of all different plants and fruits. So it's not like a consciousness of somebody has been put on that yet for profit, you know. So everything that we get at the grocery store, whether even if you get it from seed or you get it from a graft, we're already behind on that consciousness. Somebody already tapped into that, modified it, and then gave it to you so that you can grow, you know. So what I
Yeah.
focus on is wild foods because that's the only food that has remained genetically intact throughout time, only being evolved and changed by its ecology, by the environment over vast periods of time. That's the way it's supposed to be. But when you take things and you kind of hyper focus their development, just like you would a child, you wouldn't push its development faster than it is
Yeah.
supposed to be. You would take it with time. That's how it's designed to be because through that process, you work out the kinks. But if you're trying to
Hmm.
jump and move too many evolutions to evolve something, that's when you get something that's out of balance. That's why the medicine ain't in the food no more because they
Hmm.
just pushed it to try to capitalize on something that we wanted. Maybe more sugar. Maybe you want that shit to be more sweet, but you took away
Right.
some of
Right.
the antioxidants in it, and you didn't realize that. So by now we're eating food that has already been deviated from the wild progenitor that it came from, which is the original.
Right. Right. And then when you're going into nature, you're staying a student regardless. The more that you
Oh,
always
for
go into
sure.
nature,
It's the greatest
the
teacher.
more. Yeah. Yeah. Because there's so many species of things on this earth that the masses at us being on the actual phones haven't even tapped into in so many different ways. There's new bugs being found every single second. So that means there's new aliens being found every single second. That is something that's new to our plane or our sphere of consciousness, right? So it really always just is going to come down to what avatar do we actually want? What avatar are we actually looking to alchemize with? So we know that food doesn't give us energy. It is a tool for our avatar to alchemize to something else, to
Yeah.
put its will, our conscious will, into our vessels and watch it do its thing. So we have to really always just look at what are we always talking about like what to eat, but it's really like how to eat, right? It's like how
Mm.
do we actually eat? What sphere, what indoctrination have we been planted with to say like, oh, eating, this is what it is, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, like what is it? Because there's too many beings on here that have already tapped into these realms of like not even needing food in so many
Yeah.
different ways because energy is on different subtle bodies and realms. So
And
it's
also
all.
like you said, it's
Okay, bro.
about the awareness of what you're trying to tap into, right?
Hmm.
Like there is some people out here really trying not to eat food at all. That's a
Yeah.
consciousness. You can go there. I saw myself floating into that when I was,
Right.
with my fasting trials and spending a lot of time without food. I saw myself going there thinking that, but
Right.
then I didn't.
Hmm.
My being chose something else. So I'm tapping
Hmm.
into, well, I want to tap into the frequency of nature. I want to
Hmm.
be out there and feel like a human being out there in the wild that's just integrated with the ecosystem. That's the journey I'm on.
Hmm.
And I don't want to project that onto everybody and say that's the life that you need, but that's what I'm
Hmm.
trying to tap into. That's where I'm going. So I'm aware of that. So you
Hmm.
got to be aware of where you're trying to go. You
Hmm.
might want to live in Atlanta and go to the grocery store and be vegan, and that might be it for you. That's fine. That's perfectly fine. But we have to be aware of it, right? So when you have awareness, you make decisions based off of the awareness. What's your goal? Oh, I'm trying to tap into this.
Exactly.
Okay, so here are the steps. You want to
Exactly.
tap into that? Get more in
Hmm.
tune with that frequency. You're trying to get into frequency of nature, do more things that are on that frequency of nature that are correlate with that frequency of nature. So that's what I'm trying to just that's what I'm an advocate for, is just be aware of yourself and what you're trying to do, but just know that there's repercussions and there's things that you have to do for everything. There's the course of action that you got to take for all things. But for me, the most important thing, or what I see fit, is just the harmony and equilibrium that exists in nature and the ecology that I don't see in civilization. So it's a different type of thing that I'm thirsting for, that I
I
can't
hear that
find there. So I
perspective.
gotta I gotta be out here.
No, 100%. Like that's where it's at. And I got a question for you. before I ask that question, I want to just put this statement out that our ancestors were always alchemists, because a lot of times I've been hearing like people talk about their agendas and what they want to push according to wherever they're at in their consciousness of like, hey, our ancestors were tribal people and they did this and they did that. And I'm like, whose ancestors? Because
Yeah.
I know my ancestors, our ancestors, if we keep on going back, our
What period?
ancestors
Huh? Like,
were
what period
always
of ancestors do you want to tap into, right?
exactly, and not even in a linear sense either, because if we keep going back before linear time, what were our ancestors on? They were pure alchemists. They were everywhere in this realm being alchemists. So when people just say like, we came from a hunter-gatherer species, I'm like, you gonna cap it off like that? Like that's all you gonna say? Like, nah,
Right.
we were always alchemists. We was taking this spirit and mixing it with this bone, with this beak, and we was doing a whole bunch of things that made it into an actual alchemy, not just saying we were hunter-gatherers. Like
Right.
like we ain't all been indoctrinated to think that we some savages, that we all come from some mountain where we're all eating one hyena every single day.
Yeah.
Like that's not where we come
But
from. We
even in
way more
that,
royal.
even in that, there's perspective, right? Because you can
Mm-hmm.
look at that as savagery. Somebody else might look at it, well, man, that person is in tune. Like they see out here into the ecosystem, what I might just
Right.
see as green. They know
Mm-hmm.
every single plant. They know
Mm-hmm.
its uses, and they know the cycles intimately. Like if it was his brother and sister, like if it was his lover, And that's one
Mm-hmm.
of the things that I wanted to point out is that a
Beautiful.
lot of people that say they want to save the animals, they don't
Mm-hmm.
even know the animal, bro. They don't know the reproduction cycle of the animal.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know its mating call of the animal. They don't know its patterns. But get this, you go to a hunter, they know all that. They
Mm-hmm.
know exactly how that animal thinks. And in order for you to love something truly, you have to understand and know it. So if you don't understand and know it, how can you love that thing?
Mm-hmm.
You're having this detached sense of activism because you're trying to
Mm-hmm.
be like, oh, I want to save the animals. I have a good heart, and that's good and all, but it's not real. The real form of love is to really know something and to have an
Mm-hmm.
intimate relationship. And I said, there's nothing more intimate than knowing an animal, hunting it, consuming it, and making it a part of your body. There will never be
Yeah.
nothing more intimate than that. I don't know if, and people could say, oh, well, you got to start eating people, but that's just not how things work.
I mean, it all comes back to all of self at that point, right? Because when you're really intimate with one thing, you realize, oh, you was actually already in me. So I'm not gonna look at you like you really separate. I'm gonna play with it because that's what we're here to do, is play with the things of reality and actually experience reality. So we got to come from like, oh, I have a reptilian brain, so I might eat the snake, like, and so I might strengthen that part of my brain or whatnot, right? But
Right.
that's what real intimacy is always going to be, is actually seeing like, yo, like I'm eating you, but you're not dying, because there is no death, right? There is no
No,
life, right? We were
well,
never
what you're
birthed.
doing is right. It's not dying. You just transitioning that. Now you get to be me
Mm-hmm.
because
Exactly.
all that you are, that when I consume you, you become a part of my body. So now
Right.
you are me. We're linked, like like that on a very intimate level. But it's hard for a lot of people to see that because a lot of emotion. Like, and I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you get these
It's,
documentaries and
they're not woke
you
yet. Yeah,
slow
yeah.
you slow mo the film of the cow and you play some sad music and you get
Yeah,
somebody
the guilt.
you get somebody who lives in civilization who's never had a relationship with animals, who's never had
Mm-hmm.
that intimate interaction. They're giving you their narrative. So when I
Mm-hmm.
look at that, I'm like, I'm not like hating on it, but I do look at it with the understanding that they're only explaining it and able to see it from the level that they're at and from their experience, which is completely detached from nature. So
Mm-hmm.
so there
Mm-hmm.
so for us to like,
and
and like I
and
said, that's why
targeted
I said, like,
audience.
well, that's why I said, if you don't want to be part of nature, that's not your goal. That's fine. But a
That's
lot of
my
people
question,
have
bro.
linked a lot of people have linked veganism and plant-based to natural and nature. And when you go into nature, as far as humans are concerned, you don't see that behavior and you don't see that way of perceiving the world
Mm-hmm.
throughout any cultures. Like you don't have the segregation of like species. You don't have like this way of thinking. So that's how I look at it. I just try to remember that they're only projecting from their point of view. We're all projecting from our
Uh-huh.
point of view, but
Right, right.
that's gonna be an indicator of where that's gonna take you. So if you listen to them, guess
Exactly.
where you're
It,
gonna be
it
at? You're gonna
It's
be
the
at
spirit behind
Los
it.
Angeles. You're gonna be in New York at Whole Foods trying to be a
At Whole
juicing
Foods.
vegan, and ain't nothing
Hmm.
wrong with that. But this ain't this ain't that frequency. You know, this is
Right,
something else.
right. That it ain't that frequency. So this is the question, because we are talking about eating and alchemy. My question is, just answer it however it comes to you for sure. Um, is there such thing as things being unnatural? Is there such thing
Mm.
as unnatural?
That's a good question. That's a very good question. You know, and I've definitely thought about this because you can argue, you know, humans are part of nature, so anything that we create is by a byproduct of something that is natural. Um, but the way I look at it is more so out of balance. You know, is it out of balance
Okay.
or not? You know, whether
Hmm.
it's natural or non-natural. I think in terms of more because we can do things that one could describe as unnatural, like that doesn't happen in nature, but then humans did it, so humans are a part of nature. So you have that whole argument. So I would like to think of it more as like, is this conducive to the balance and harmony that we're trying to experience? But then I also have to know that everything is in cycles, right? So even though that might be happening right now, it's my perspective that we're going into a era of where we're cycling back to the more tribal, the more primal parts of ourselves after having detached from that. So we go through cycles. This is where you see civilizations rise and then go back, and then people go back out into the mountains and then they come back to civilization. I believe in the cycles of existence. So I try not to demonize things because I understand their place. You know, I understand that we're just kind of experiencing these different cycles, and just to be aware of what part of the cycle am I in and how can I be in harmony to the best of my ability. So that's how I look at that.
Agreed. Agreed. Just to add on to that from my own perspective of what I would also put there is just that, yeah, I mean, trauma is separation and separation is trauma. And then we divide it into these little psychological ways that we do as humans to actually like figure it out a little bit more with the mind.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's pretty much the simplicity of it, is that when we actually, separate something as being unnatural because or organic, not organic, or unnatural because it's non-GMO, then we actually have to see like, oh snap, that's something inside of me actually, still harvesting inside of myself. Um, that's actually putting a separation between it, because maybe that 7 years ago I watched that documentary, and they put that guilt frequency music on while I was seeing a part of me die, and I still have this consciousness that death is bad, and all these things
Right.
add to that factor, right? So I would like to just add on to that. Like, yeah, there is cycles. We have to look at things in their equinoxes and what is the energy all in the mix. Because even you take it back to, what we can say our ancestors, as in the Sumerians or the Egyptians, they looked at everything as math the way that we don't look at it today. It's never was 1 + 1 = 2. It was syntheism and systtheism, which means that
Hmm.
everything is part of a whole system that is
Right.
creating greater and greater coherencies, and that's what magnetism is. And then we don't know what magnetism is at this point, because we've lost tune with that oneness because of these guilts, these shames, these prides. So as long as you have these guilt, shames, and prides, that's always going to go into your eating. That's always going to be there
Mm.
while you consuming whatever you consuming,
Right.
period.
Right.
Every
It don't
single
matter.
time.
Yeah,
Every
and
single
that's why,
time.
I can. I think the source of that like kind of gets back to just awareness, being
Mm-hmm.
aware, right? Like
Consciousness.
not
Mm-hmm.
like being like demonizing that or that's good or that's bad, but just being aware. Like you said, like if you look at life like death is bad, well, become aware of where that comes from, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
try to understand why that belief has manifested in you and the effect that it's having in your life and how you interact with things. If you're not aware of that, you just go with that programming, and then you end up 50 years down the road like confused because you didn't really take control of your life because you weren't aware of what was happening, and the decisions that you were making, they were all based off of the program that you received. So that we have to question ultimately. So that's really what this conversation is about
Mm-hmm.
questioning our awareness of things and not just taking it and running with it, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
understanding our mind.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, 100%. So that even answers like the original question at the top here: is is eating meat or anything makes you more spiritual? Well, you got to know the spirits behind it. And the only way to know the spirits behind it is to actually know that you're actually aware. You have to be aware. You have to be intensely here. You have to actually be here, not thinking about the future, thinking about the past, thinking about.
Yeah.
You have to actually be alert
Oh,
and
I love
actually
that you said that.
conscious.
I
Mm-hmm.
love that you said that because
Mm-hmm.
okay, let's talk about this. A big argument that I hear when it comes to eating meat, and it comes from India, the Buddhists, like the Eastern philosophies that believe in reincarnation, and are basically trying to
Mm-hmm.
detach themselves from this plane, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I love that you said that because to me, and this is how I look at life, like I say this, like we're here to be here till we're no longer here. But these philosophies are like, nah, fuck being here. I'm trying to get there. You know, they don't
Yeah,
want to be
yeah.
present. So they're trying to not eat. They're trying to tap into their God body or whatever
Mm-hmm.
body they need to tap to elevate. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
nah, I just want to be here. I just want to be human and have
Boom.
this experience, you
There
know.
it
And
is.
so that's the difference of perspective that I realized. That's why they're worried about karma. That's why they're worried about, well, certain things with death, because they're thinking that, well, this is going to be a result, or I'm going to see the results of this in my next lifetime. So they're there. They're in their next
Mm-hmm.
lifetime already. They're not here.
Yeah.
They're thinking about their next life, you know. And I see this in religion a lot, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of Christians, they're like, oh, we're not of this world. We're just
Mm-hmm.
here. We're just passing by till we get. So everything is like transitory, right? Like don't focus on being present here. Just worry about the next lifetime, you know. And so that's my perspective, that I want to be here, you know, and I want to experience
Mm-hmm.
what being here feels like. You don't have to agree with me, or you don't have to share that perspective, but that's where I'm coming from. That's why I understand the comments that they make.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I'm trying to reincarnate here at all times. Every single time I think about the future, I need to be thinking about reincarnating here, because where else is there to be? If I'm not here, then I'm not aware, then I'm not woke, I'm not actually being me, which is consciousness, which is everything, right? People
Right,
think that this earth plane doesn't have everything inside of it. Every single thing is here because here is everywhere. So we have this full indoctrination that, like, oh, reincarnation, like, don't want to come back here. And that's 100% the spiritual movement. Like, oh, I think this is my last life.
right,
You're not even here yet. You haven't even came here yet then, because you would want, like, where else you gonna be?
yeah.
That means that you're not you then. You're just fully not you yet.
And
You have not
get
even
this,
became you yet.
get this, like, okay, so they're worried about the animals, right? Because they don't want to receive karma in their next lifetime.
Hmm.
But isn't it the animals' karma in this lifetime to get eaten by that frame of logic that they live by? It's
Exactly.
the animals' karma to get eaten. So why are we trying to avoid, or if we believe in that philosophy, then we should just allow that and we should be at peace with that. But this whole movement of trying to stop that from happening, it goes against the whole concept of karma and reincarnation, because if they're here to get eaten, they're here to get eaten. You can't stop that. That's their karma. Why you focus
Hmm.
on that? Let that be.
It's us thinking that we more than what we are. It's us thinking that with our minds we can create a different reality, and all that's doing is trying to fix reality as if reality isn't already infinite, right? Like, that's like saying, like, yo, if I just create something else in this reality with my mind, then I will be able to fix reality. Wait, hold up. Why are you trying to fix something?
Right.
That's you not seeing that everything is already infinitely already made.
As
You
it
trying to
should.
fix something as if it's not already made. Hold up.
Right.
That means you guilty. You guilty, and that's what's blocking your step. That's what's blocking your oneness in the first place, because you
Mm.
always trying to fix something, right? And
Right.
so you just sitting there, and you looking to change the way that we as humans all look at things, when you haven't even looked at self yet. You haven't even looked at self, because when you look at self, you see that all is self every single time. And then boom, you trying to change yourself as if you're not already beloved, as if you're not
Mm.
already infinite, divine, internal bliss,
But that's
all
what
that
this is all
goodness.
about, though. Like even
Hmm.
this conversation here, and I always bring it back to that, is the self. You know, I know we just scapegoating around the true issue, which is the self. I know
Hmm.
people are trying to project it onto the food and be like, the food is doing this, the food is doing that. But really, we're just dancing around avoiding having to look at ourselves and be like, no, you the problem. The way you think is the way you look at life. You're not aware of what of your actions, of your consequences, of the reality you're in. You're putting it on everything out there. And so when you bring it back to self, you just realize like, oh, it's a lot more simple than I thought. You know, we don't have to complicate it with all these different things and ideas. It really does become a lot more simple when you just, you know, point it back at you.
It's a miracle, bro. Everything is for us to witness the miracle, and if we're not witnessing the miracles of every single little thing, then you can tell we're probably trying to, force some will into, from a state of not actually being self yet. We're trying to force will, and that's not even us. That's not even us trying to force will, and we're just not witnessing. We're just not basking in the witness consciousness at all. We're
Mm.
not actually seeing like, yo, I've been placed here and everything is magical. Everything's a beautiful game for my inner child. Every
Right.
single little thing is a miracle. I have not seen one thing that's not a miracle yet, right? And so that's why I always kind of put at the very top of the food chain, meditation, contemplation. Is that simple. Like if you don't see that at the top of the food chain and where you're trying to see any type of hierarchy, then you're not even seeing a lowarchy. You're just not even
Okay.
here yet. You're not
Yeah.
even here yet.
Okay. That's my next point. Okay. Here we
Go
go.
ahead.
Um, the idea that, okay, so we're trying to save animals, right?
Okay.
The idea comes from narcissism, because here's how we do it, right? Every animal that's closest to me is more valuable than the other organisms that exist. So the closer an organism gets to a human, the more we value it. So so if it's a plant, it's more valuable than a bacteria. If it's a fungus, it's more valuable than a plant. If it's an insect, it's more valuable than a fungus. If it's a mammal, it's more valuable than an insect. So all this is pointing back to is literally seeing ourselves as the top of the hierarchy, right? Rather than seeing it as a relationship that we coexist in. So it's all a projection of our own our own vision of ourselves, the way we see ourselves. So um, so when people are trying to save the animals, and so they'll say sentience, because I feel sentience and I feel pain, I categorize that as the thing to want to the metric to use to save a organism. If that organism doesn't experience sentience the way I experience it, it is not as valuable and worthy of being protected as the other animals. So you know what I mean? Like, so, and the thing is that other organisms do experience a form of pain. It's called stress. Your cells experience stress right now
Mm-hmm.
through the process of apoptosis. There's cells dying in your body, programmed
Mm-hmm.
cell death, so that your body could keep functioning. That's a program that exists that includes death, that lets life exist. Without death, we don't have life. So this hierarchy that we create is a projection of our own self. We're projecting
Mm-hmm.
our value at the top, and everything that gets closer to us is close. That's closer to us in resemblance and anatomical features is closer to that, and everything far away is at the bottom of that. You know, so that's how we see life, but it
100%.
all goes back to us. Like, it's an egotistical thing. So even that in itself, that people say like, oh, I'm just trying to save the world, I love the animals, I'm doing it for this, for that. No, you just projecting yourself onto them and your thoughts and your emotions, and then trying to save yourself through those animals. But you won't ever save yourself or you won't ever free them until you free yourself. And you ain't
Boom.
never
It's
gonna free yourself
attachment.
until you know what I mean?
It's attachment to not being woke, because then you would actually see, if you were actually detached from, your unconscious patterns and beliefs, even, you would actually see, oh, okay, well, I actually never was traumatized. I actually never was in pain. I actually never was going through all these things. The body was, the mind was, all
Yeah.
that was. Self wasn't ever doing that. So I would recognize the oneness in that animal, the consciousness in that animal is not also going through any pain. Also, not going
We
through
project
any
that.
any
Yeah, we
stress.
project that onto the animals.
We're
Have you
projecting it
seen
onto them.
have you seen an animal
Well,
there's a clip of
unconsciousnesses, not us. We can't project, but unconsciousnesses, yeah.
right. So like, have you seen an animal in nature and a crocodile tries to eat it, and literally like 2 seconds later, like it's back to normal, like it's
Yeah.
chilling because it moved on from that, you know. But what I noticed that humans, we tend to do, like, we hold on to the trauma, you know, and then we project that trauma everywhere that we go. So our
Mhm.
reality and everything that we see and what we choose to focus on is all a projection of our own trauma. So until we deal with that trauma ourselves, we're just going to keep projecting into everything that we see, and so we get these movements that are that they're just residual of our own trauma that's being projected onto other organisms. Well, how do you know the animal's in pain? Like, stop projecting. Like, let that animal be and speak for itself. And you're not a voice for it. Like, it's its own voice, you know.
Just
So it's
because
like,
you not woke, don't mean the animal not woke.
right.
You know,
That's why, like,
like
bro,
the
why
animal
you?
love going through that. Like, because it's actually there. Like, it don't got this monkey mind being like, hey, like, you know, I can attach to things now with this mind that is it's taking over my body. Now I can attach to all these different chemistries going on in my body that I'm
Yeah,
attaching as mine in the first place. Like, come on, bro.
right.
Come on.
All right, man. It was really good talking to you. I love some of the comments that you made, but I'm gonna bring
Yeah,
somebody
bro.
else on to give somebody else a chance.
Yeah, bro. I think people want to save this live. So if that's the thing, you know, make it happen.
Oh, for sure. I'm gonna save it.
We'll talk soon, bro. All right,
All
peace.
right. Peace. All right. So, um, yeah, this live is definitely gonna get saved, and I'm gonna bring somebody else in that hasn't been on here. Let me bring in Walking Flex and see their perspective.
What's up, my guy?
Hey, how's it going?
It's fine. Nice to talk to you, my guy. I just wanted to say though, do you know that plants have no pain receptors at all?
Oh, no. Well, not in the way that we or mammals have them. They do experience stress, which is a different form of pain. Because all pain
Oh,
is it's a signal. Pain is a signal. So they get similar signals through stress, which is kind of a universal thing throughout life. Because we need signals when things are going the way we want it to go, and we're not. We need signals. That's all reality is signals. It's information. So they receive information in a different way, not necessarily in the way that we receive it exactly, but I do believe that they do have the functions where they don't want to be eaten. Many plants have developed chemicals to protect them from being eaten, and so yeah, that's the reality of the plant kingdom.
okay. All right, makes sense. The next question is, have you ever seen like the cholesterol levels compared to a vegan versus an omnivore? Because when I saw the science said that it was just much better compared to the omnivore towards the vegan, as well as the vegans. They also had less rates of heart diseases and just multiple types of like arteries, like
Yeah.
less clogged arteries. So
Well,
I'm just trying to.
those studies are very hard to take for face value because they don't often account for a lot of things, a lot of factors. Like, so they could have been smoking, they could have been drinking soda, they could have been doing a lot of other stuff that just is out of balance. And then they just
No,
all
for
they
sure.
measured, the only metric was the meat. But if we look at people, like talking about generations, lineages of people, traditional people that eat meat, they have virtually no uh, no heart disease, no cancer. They don't have any of the modern ailments of modern people who eat meat, and that's because they're doing it in a way different way, and they also don't have all the other factors that modern people have. So it's a complicated thing, and often in the studies, not everything is taken into account. So what?
For
But
sure.
if you go live with these people, can I share a video? I don't know if I can share a video here, but essentially it's a hunter-gatherer tribe, the Hadza. They live in Tanzania, and they still have their hunter-gatherer life way intact. And one of the things that they prize the most is meat. Like, if you ask them what's the most important thing in the world, they'll say meat. Second thing they say is honey. Third thing they say is corn porridge, which is something that has just recently been introduced after colonization and in the shipment of different products across the globe. But before, they weren't eating corn porridge, but they do eat tubers. But that's just their reality, and they don't experience the cholesterol, the heart disease, and the cancer that many people claim comes with meat. So we have
Okay.
to look at that and be like, well, is it really the meat, or are there other factors that we're not considering? Because it's easy to scapegoat something, but when we look at the history of usage in humans, it goes way, way, way back. If that was the case, we wouldn't be here. If meat was truly as bad as people say it is, we would not exist, you know. So it's the way we're doing it, how we're doing it, and the amounts that we're doing it, and the environment that we're doing it in. And also, somebody just said about seed oils, a lot of these meats are cooked in seed oils. People don't know a lot about seed oils, but seed oils are PUFAs. They're polyunsaturated fatty acids, and these acids go rancid in your blood. So if you're cooking with this stuff, even if you're cooking meat, it's not going to be the meat itself, but it'll be the oil that you're cooking the food with that never gets taken into account, you know. So there's a lot of factors like that, and I can go on about that all day. The water that you're bathing in, the water you're drinking, the EMFs, the radiation that you receive, so much that I don't feel comfortable like taking those studies and being like, oh, that's right because they said that. So that's why I don't go based off of studies. I like to go based off of like observation or like myself that I've observed either through my experience or people who have gone to study these groups that have their traditions intact and seeing the results of that. If you want to kind of like a bird's eye view into that or a quick peek at that, Weston A. Price was a dentist who went around the world and studied all the different tribes, and he basically published his findings. And they were all omnivores. They all ate animal foods. They prized animal foods. They thought animal foods were nourishing, but they also ate plants and they did different things to process the plants. But that is a case study of actual observation, not like data in a laboratory. You know what I mean? So that's what I prefer to look at.
Okay, yeah, no, for sure. I'm just trying to understand this whole thing because, like, there's just so many different, like I don't really believe in the whole vibration thing. I think it's your vibration comes from your consciousness, honestly. So I
Yeah.
didn't want to get into that. The next thing I wanted to get into is how do you feel about people going vegan to create to stand up for like giving animals their own wildlife because everything that's going on in society, which is like they're getting slaughtered for business, for money, they're getting filled with multiple things. So
Mm.
that's what a lot of the comments are saying. Veganism is not about health. Vegan is for the animals. So they're doing
Okay.
this. And I saw what you were saying before. You were kind of comparing it to projecting and ego, like it being the ego. So I want to get further
No,
into.
let me answer that because that like I definitely think that I kind of agree with that approach as far as like I believe that animals because I want to be a sovereign wild animal in nature too.
Yes.
I also want that for other animals. I project that onto other animals. So I agree with that. The thing is that my argument is that why do we not have this same type of
Think
a
towards
standard,
plants.
right? A standard
Yeah.
towards plants
Yeah.
because a conscious person, like if you had a relationship with nature, like and nature gave you food and life, you would see it all as a sacred. There wouldn't be
Yeah.
this division of kingdoms. So this is a kingdomist approach to where this kingdom is good, this kingdom is bad.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have that approach because it would all be sacred to you. So that's where my like argument is like why do you not have that same reverence for plants? Because when somebody eats meat, they demand reverence. Like, you better be thankful that animal died for you. But when it comes to plants, people can consume an infinite amount of plants. It doesn't have to be organic. They don't have to be thankful. They don't have to pray over it. They don't have to know the farmer. Because in that kingdom, it all goes and there's no reverence that's necessary. I don't agree with that. I believe that everything that we should consume should be reverent. It should be sacred in equal equal fashion, not animal more sacred, plant less sacred. You know
So
what I
you
mean?
see the division towards like some people are like hailing plants over animals. It's kind of like they're saying that like, oh, we could just eat plants. It doesn't really matter. But at the same time, and like they don't really like give appreciation to the plants. But the second they eat an animal, it's like, oh, we're gonna show all this appreciation to the animal because this is a living thing. When in reality, everything is basically alive.
Exactly, exactly. And everything has a place, you know, in the ecosystem. Like if we don't have animals and if we don't have that relationship with the animals, like it's going to be out of balance, you know. Even if like you study something like regenerative agriculture where they're trying to make the soil better, they need to have animals as a part of that equation or else the soil's not healthy. And that's because ecosystem is complex. There's a lot of moving parts and a lot of organisms. So my focus is like, well, I think that we need to reconnect with that relationship with the ecosystem. So it's like you can talk about animals, you can talk about plants, but I say this all the time. Like it doesn't matter because if you're still shopping at the grocery store, it doesn't matter. You're just shopping at a different aisle in the grocery store, but you still relying on the grocery store. You still don't know the animals, you still don't know the plants. When does it fruit? What does a flower look like? When do you harvest? You know, like there's so much stuff that we don't have a relationship with. So it's easy to just scapegoat, like I said. But to me, that's the most important part. If you have a relationship with what you consume, that will be the healthiest thing for you.
Okay, so you were saying that you kind of agreed with the whole idea of like the split of like people saying we're gonna go vegan because we want the split of like ecosystem, correct? So
No,
what
no,
would be
I agree with the concept of wanting to allow animals to be wild and have the
yeah, no,
wild
no,
experience.
I get that. So what I was just gonna ask, what would your approach be? What would be the proper approach? Would it just to be go do because like you're like in the wild, for example, right?
I'm in a place that's more natural. I definitely have more trees around me, but I wouldn't say I'm in the wild. Most of the earth has
Okay,
already kind of been civilized and reclaimed and torn down. It's very hard to find a place that's like wild, undomesticated. You would have to go like very deep into the jungle. Probably wouldn't have service like that right now. But
yeah.
so for me, it's a journey, and for me, it's a process. And I'm not thinking that people are gonna adopt any way of life and that the world's going to change instantly. I'm just, like I was telling the other person, I'm just aware of where I want to go. And those that resonate with it, like you're welcome to be part of the journey and we can share ideas and stuff because I believe it does take community. It takes people around you to kind of live this lifestyle. But it would ultimately be to gather food from the ecology, to be able to hunt, fish, and forage for food. And just like just like people have done for many generations, had that relationship with the land, and through that I believe that things come into balance because the ecosystems regulate animals, like something in hunting called the carrying capacity. You they This is how they regulate how many animals can be hunted every year because they have a calculation that goes on where a certain animal needs a certain amount of space to be able to exist healthfully. But they don't talk about this for humans because they cram us all into cities and they put us in buildings. But I believe that humans also have a carrying capacity on any given piece of land, that we need spaces to roam and feel free, spaces without houses and infrastructure, wild spaces. Like we need wild spaces. And so um, a lot of people, when they give solutions, they're not thinking about that. They're just thinking, well, if you can physically fit humans into a space, then if that space is not overpopulated. But to me, it's like, well, let's integrate into the ecosystem and let the ecosystem regulate that because that's what the ecosystem does naturally. It's not going to allow more to exist there that can exist there with the resources that are present. But when you get cities, you can go to other places and then haul in the resources from Brazil, from the Amazon, and feed all these people in the cities because you're bringing in nutrition. And interestingly enough, that's how cancer works. It's called metastasis. It's called angiogenesis. This process of diverting blood vessels to feed the cancer, the tumor. That's what cancer does. So in the same way, humans are moving in that way to where we're taking the resources of the healthy parts of the body, which is the earth, and we're diverting it to the cancers, which is the cities that just suck up all these resources, and we're fueling that. So that's how I look at it.
So it's definitely you're trying to say it's not about the food you eat, it's about where you are, wouldn't you say? It's about basically the bigger picture is the ecosystem that you're in rather than what you're putting into your body. Because like you said before, if you're going to a supermarket to get all these things, you don't have a connection with anything that's inside of there.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Getting back to the source, which is nature.
Okay, all right. I mean, I've been vegan for about 6 months. I was too on the idea of higher and lower vibration, so that's where I wanted to end it off. I just
Yeah.
wanted a much more clear understanding from you, the one last time, to explain to me and to explain to everybody here, because that's what this purpose of this video was about. What does
Mhm.
how come people claim to believe that plants give you a higher, just being on a vegan diet gives you a higher vibration than eating meat, and
Yeah.
compare it to how it's really about ecosystem is the higher vibration rather than what you're putting into your body.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. I love that question. So I think there's many aspects to it, but I think one of the most prominent that stands out is that, and something that I've experienced, like when you start eating plants, especially if you come from like just eating fast food, eating burgers and burritos and fries, and you just go straight to plants, or you go straight to raw, which is what I did, raw plants, you
Yeah,
feel
me
differently.
too.
You obviously feel differently. You feel lighter. and then you go further. Now you start fasting, you feel like your senses are heightened because they are. But what I explain
That,
to people is this process that people interpret as raising your vibration is just your body refining its senses so that it can survive better, so it can find food. So why
uh,
would you need to smell better? So you can have a better sense of smell, so you can know direction. Maybe you're looking for a food in your environment. Your body is trying to do everything it can to have you find food again. That's how I look at it. But what people interpret is that, well, I feel like I'm floating. No, you're just hungry and you're lacking energy,
certain nutrients, yeah.
nutrients. Yeah. So people interpret that in many different ways. But and so I think that that's where it comes from. And also this idea that like the karmaless, like a food that doesn't have karma. So they equate that. So like maybe a fruit that you don't, because a plant you could pluck it from the ground and you eat it and that plant's dead, right? But a fruit, it lives on a tree, and if you take that fruit, the tree still survives. So people would say that doesn't have karma attached to it. But then I would say, but what about the soil that tree grows in? It requires death to exist too. So even that fruit that we're eating needed death to happen for its existence to prevail. So so that's how I look at it. And then connecting it to to frequency in nature, they're not even tapping into the frequency of nature, because all the foods that they're eating are coming from a grocery store
Yeah,
that's been, and a lot of these foods aren't fresh. A lot of these foods have been stored, and a lot of these foods have been genetically altered. They're not the wild counterparts that they came from. So they're tapping into the frequency of civilization, the frequency of all of that I just described. If you go
yeah.
out into nature, it doesn't matter if you eat an animal, a mushroom, algae, or a plant. Now you're tapping into a frequency of nature,
No, for
not
sure.
lower or higher, but different. You know what
Different,
I'm saying?
exactly.
And so
Yeah.
I don't make the hierarchy of lower and higher.
Yeah,
It's
I
just
hate. I
different.
really do. I just cut that out. The whole, oh, this makes you higher or lower. I mean, it's all about
Yeah,
what's in
because
here. It's all about what's in
right
here.
now we're
Like you
separating,
said
and that's what I
before as well.
yeah, that's what I told the other guy, that it's more about awareness. Like
Yeah, awareness.
what consciousness are you trying to tap into? Because if you
Yeah,
want to tap into civilization, you go live in Los Angeles and you go order fast food, or you go order Uber Eats and watch Netflix, and you'll be there. But if you want to tap into nature, you have to do something different. You have to go to where nature still exists in its wild spaces, and you have to have a relationship with that. That's how you tap into the frequency of nature. So like I don't want to demonize or say this is higher, this is lower. I'm just trying to bring awareness, to things.
no, no, for sure, because you're just explaining how it's a scapegoat by saying, "Oh, I'm vegan, so I'm kind of like now I'm tapped into the highest vibration." When in reality, they still live in their civilization. They're going to Whole Foods to get their produce, and
Right.
no, no, it makes
And there's
complete
nothing
sense.
wrong with that. It's
Uh,
just that that's a different frequency.
Yeah, basically, and you're just comparing it to how could I be on a lower, if I was yourself, how could you be on a lower vibration eating meat when you're tapped into nature, when you're tapped into the ecosystem, when you're
Right.
around nature, and when
Uh,
you're eating everything that's picked off from the ecosystem.
Right. Yeah, I don't feel comfortable saying that somebody, like, if I was in civilization and I was vegan, that I have a higher frequency or vibration than somebody who lives out in the bush who hunts their own game. Like I think that
Yeah,
that's very elitist and like hierarchical and like also naive, because
yeah,
most people haven't had that experience enough to really judge both of them. Like if you haven't went out and hunted and lived this lifestyle and lived in civilization, you can't really be like, oh, this one is made me feel better or this one made more sense. Like you only have one experience. So like I said, we're projecting our experience. So of course, all your solutions, everything brings you back to that
perception.
frequency again.
And like kind of perception and like you were saying basically how could you compare it when you're out in the nature while others are just like in the supermarket and just like that. So no, for sure, it completely makes sense. I mean, I just
Yeah.
wanted to get to the bottom point of it with you. That's why I kind of commented yesterday, because
Yeah.
people just don't want to eat flesh. That's one of the
Yeah.
narratives. So it's
Yeah.
just like
I mean, yeah,
multiple things.
there's a lot of things that people don't want to do that are perfectly balanced and natural, but that we've kind of we're not comfortable with. Like some people don't want to be outside barefoot in the grass. That's where their mind is as far as disconnected from. Like I'm perfectly fine with that. I don't mind mosquitoes biting me. Like some people don't want to be outside because of mosquitoes. There's a lot of things that just because we're not comfortable with anymore, it has nothing to do with that. That's wrong. It's just that we don't have that programming. We didn't grow up with that program. We grew up with the programming of like being insulated from nature, not being able to feel it. So I can see why
Yeah, and
people
most of
react.
us are not in the nature at all. So like for people to kind of like say, "Oh, I'm on a higher vibration because I'm vegan," while never being in nature, while you're in nature, even though you're not vegan, who like how could you compare that kind of thing? You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, right,
If
exactly.
anything, both of you have like you could say some sort of high vibration because one person's outweighing the other in a different sort of aspect. If it's a perception,
Uh,
obviously.
to me, you got to have vibration because you're able to tolerate a perspective that is different than yours, and you do it in a way that's manageable, that's calm, that's understanding. A lot of people that have other beliefs that want to battle me, like they don't have that approach. So, but they claim to be on a higher frequency because of their diet. So it's
Yeah.
like I don't know. I like to feel energy because even that comment that you made, you might have took it a certain way, or you thought that I was taking it a certain way. But it's good to have a conversation face to face with people because energy gets misinterpreted through text. Like you make it mean something that it's not.
Well,
So I'm
I
glad
took
that
it.
you came
I
on.
felt like the rest of the crowd was making it seem like you took it a certain way. That was mostly the thing. You know what I mean? Because people just straight up like was just like commenting right back and forth, and I was just like, oh, whoa, whoa. I wanted to like go straight to you, like, oh, I was not disagreeing with you, but I didn't think you
Yeah.
took it any certain way. I just wanted to
Okay.
let the crowd know that I'm still trying to remain still with you.
Awesome. Yeah. Appreciate you, bro. Thank
Of
you for
course,
coming
man.
on.
It was great talking to you, my guy.
All right.
I
Nice
just
talking
wanted
to
to
you.
do that. Take care, my brother.
All right. Peace.
Peace.
All right. Let me bring in. I don't know if this person's still in the room. I'm trying to bring them in. Hey, how long we been on? Oh man, I was trying to keep this under an hour, but it's a good conversation. So I don't know. Anybody else want to come in the room? I'm trying to bring somebody else in, but there's one more person after that. And if they don't come in, then I'll just end the live. Okay, let me bring the other person in. Hello.
Hey.
Okay. So yeah, how you doing?
Good, good. I really hear everything that you're saying about a frequency and awareness, and I really agree with how awareness is super, super important about the source and understanding that, because if you're not aware of the source, then you're not knowing what you're consuming. But I think what I'm struggling to understand is eating meat today mainly comes from the supermarket, from your butcher's
Mm-hmm.
shop kind of thing. And not many people know how to hunt. And if everybody was to go to hunt in the wild, there wouldn't be many animals left. And that wouldn't be the most compassionate thing to do. So I don't know, what would be your take on that?
Okay, that's a great question, and I think I need to be more aware of like sharing this perspective because I just assume that people are like thinking how I'm thinking. Um, but in terms of like sourcing meat, I do believe that I have like my preferences as far as like I think that we as individuals should be going and having that relationship as far as hunting. Like that's the best number one way. But like you're saying, like that isn't that's limited, right? But then you from that you have like animal husbandry and farming and raising the animals yourself in like a free range, more open area where you having that relationship as well. And then on the bottom of all of that is like just these operations that is just for profit, that is
That's
just
right,
like
yeah.
slaughtering animals. Like I don't agree with those. I don't want to see those. I want to see more of the top two. I want to see more of the first one, but I believe that um it's a process. Like I understand that people aren't going to go there immediately, and it's going to take time, and it's not even possible for everybody to go on an instant. But I do want to bring emphasis to that because I want to make those who do want to participate in that aware that that exists. Because one of the ways that, and a lot of people don't know this, but hunters are like one of the most biggest contributor. They're the biggest contributors to conservation. So they have the biggest stake in preserving the land, and that's because they have a relationship with it. So they want to see the nature around them, the animals still around for future generations because they go out and hunt those animals and they have that relationship with them. Even though that process involves death, it still is in the best interest of the animal because it's regulated. The Department of Wildlife Management and Resources in America, at least, is one of the best systems that we have because before this, traditional people, Native Americans, used to manage the wildlife. So they would hunt the game and they would make sure to take only as they needed and to make use of certain things and make sure that the populations were in balance. So that's what the role that we play when we're in the ecosystem. Obviously, most of us are in civilization by now, but when we're in the ecosystem, we play the role of a predator. And what predators do in the ecosystem is that they regulate species. They regulate animal species. So they take out, like maybe they might take out like weaker, older, or just a species that is not as fit as other organisms in that species. So over time, what that does, it enhances the species. It makes them better, but through that process, right?
Of course. I
But
mean, I have heard of that. In England, for example, there's an overpopulation of deer, and if there's too many deer, that is going to affect the whole ecosystem. Or if
mhm,
there's a invading species, for example, in the ocean, lionfish happens here in Honduras, where I'm at.
yeah.
There's too many lionfish that creates a disbalance to the whole ecosystem. And yes, I've been a vegan for 6 years, but of course, in those instances, you would have to think about the macro image and think about, of course, we need to bring balance back to the ecosystem. But I mean, when it comes to having all these animals that were already, I mean, there's not wild cows that you can just go and do that.
Okay,
And
that's a perfect point. Okay, let's follow that frame of thought. So if we were to stop eating animals, because all these animals that we created, we domesticated, they don't have a
yeah,
place in nature.
yeah,
So there's no place for them to exist other than in this perpetual cycle, seemingly.
yeah.
So it's a tough situation because we've already created something that even ending it is kind of going to be catastrophic. You know what I
Of
mean?
Yeah, of course. I
So
mean, it's
so
gonna
it's like,
be it's never gonna there's never gonna be a world where people are completely 100% vegan or plant based. I completely agree with that. There's always going to be an amount of people eating meat and consuming it in many different ways.
yeah.
Um, I think the whole point of veganism is to just reduce the suffering. I mean, if you look at the actual definition of veganism, is to create as least amount of suffering or harm as possible towards the animals and the environment around you. So within that definition, I think it's kind of known that you can't completely get rid of it because that's just not it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the suffering that we think that we're avoiding has already happened. Like for instance, in order for us to live in civilization, there was a lot of suffering. This is how you get civilization. Just a quick rundown. So you have to domesticate a food like a grain, and then
Hmm.
and then you get indentured servants or slaves to build civilization up. And then once you have civilization, now you can concentrate resources to be able for people to be like, oh, I want to eat this way, I want to eat that way, because now they have options, and we have these
Yeah.
technologies that allow for these different options. So I think that a lot of the suffering that we're trying to avoid already happened. So it's easy for us to be like, well, you can just go to the grocery store and eat from the vegan aisle. Yeah, but is it worth it? Is civilization itself like what it takes to uphold it and to create it? Is that worth it, or was the traditional way of life actually less harmful? Was it actually less suffering than the modern? So that's how I look at it. I think that
Sure,
there's
I
always
agree
going to
with
be a
that.
level of suffering, and there's always going to be a level of pain that we have to exist with in this reality. but I think
Yeah,
that people don't understand the relationship with the world that they exist in. It's easy for people to just, because
exactly.
that's all we know. That's all we know. We know we were born in cities and civilization in amenities, immense amenities, and access to resources that we forget that there's a cost to all of that. There's a cost to
Yes.
everything.
Ripple effect to everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree with a lot of the stuff you have to say. I mean, personally, I'm the type of, I used to eat a lot of processed food, and then I realized how harmful that was for my health and to the environment around me. And I tried to make everything from scratch, especially now that I've moved back to Honduras, because in England it was much easier to buy all these processed food. Go, like you said, go to the vegan
Oh yeah.
aisle and
Exactly.
just,
I noticed that too. Because when we were vegan, we were traveling through like Mexico, Central America, and then that's when I realized, man, if you want to be like a typical vegan, like the easiest place for you to go is to like big cities. Like
yeah,
they'll have all the restaurants, they'll have all the stores. So then I
yeah,
started thinking that like, well, like why is it that when I get further away from nature, it gets easier for me to like kind of live this lifestyle? That's when I
mm,
started like having to make this distinction that just because you're vegan, like that doesn't equate to natural, and
no,
so you know what I mean. So it's like, and even with carnivore, like you could be eating processed meat, so it's just like returning back to the process and being aware and a part of the process of connecting that no matter what
awareness.
foods you eat, no matter if you're eating only plant foods, well, that's your journey. That's not for me to decide or judge, but becoming aware of that process and having a relationship with it, that's the most important thing I think that we can all take from this. If you can grow one thing, if you can go out and harvest one thing, or whatever, like just be a part of that process. And the closer you get to that, like you were saying, making your own food, that's one step in the right direction. Growing your own food and then cooking it yourself,
Yes.
that's a better step. And you just follow that trajectory, and it's going to lead you to nature. And what,
Yes.
what what you do when you get here, that's up to you. But I just want people to be on that frequency. That's how I see it.
100%. Yeah. The frequency of just being aware, being compassionate towards everything around you, thanking, having the gratitude towards everything that you eat and that you consume, and just, yeah, like the awareness of everything they consume, food or not food, because it all has a source, it all has a ripple effect, and it's just so important to think like that. I mean,
And
I
it,
also
it all
just,
has a place too. Like right
sorry,
now, I'm doing a liquid fast. I'm just eating liquids right now.
yeah,
Smoothies, juices. So a lot of people might think, oh well, this guy's just pushing for killing animals. No, because I see the value in everything, and
yeah, fasting is
so I
super important. It really
so I know
cleanses
when
you.
to use certain things and when to switch up, and how to regulate that. And I think that's where you want to get to. You want to be aware of that, because you don't want to like be like a monolith of like, oh, just eat this one thing forever, and you'll be good. So it's like if you just do that, then I believe you're out of tune with the cycles of your own body, because you go
Of
through different
course. I
parts
mean,
of
you
your
should
of
eat seasonally, whatever is in season, so that you're being conscious. I mean, uh, I'm studying to be a plant-based nutritionist. I have a friend that is a doctor and helps reverse disease with a
Mhm.
whole food plant-based diet. And obviously, that's completely different with each client that you get. And some people do opt that they still want to eat meat. And what is normally suggested to them is just to eat the healthiest meat that you could get, which is like grass fed or organic. But it's only about once or twice a week, because if you start consuming more than that, it will have a effect in you trying to reverse or prevent the diseases. And I mean,
Yeah. Even
and that's
traditionally
from
though,
like how you said earlier. I heard you say that you want to see the effects. It's not just like scientifically. I mean, there's lots of people that my friend
through
has helped.
experience.
Yeah, has
Right,
had the
right.
experience to reserve
And
lots
but
of
but check this
diseases.
out, and also just how that works in the same manner, we can also coexist with the reality that animal foods help other people as well. So that's what
Yeah,
I want to make a distinction, because it's easy to be like, oh well, that healed them. So because I could do this with fasting, right? I can fast and say, well, I felt
yeah,
great when I was fasting, and then I go into the paradigm that I have to never eat again, just keep fasting and fasting, and then then that's when you realize like that's not good anymore, because now you fell out of balance with that. So I do believe that all these things play a role, and just because one thing worked at some point doesn't mean that you have to keep doing it forever and ever. It just means that that was the right thing to do at that time. So
Of
that
course.
is harder to sell because it relies more on the individual's awareness of themselves than
Yeah.
like me giving you a regimen of like, okay, eat this exact a smoothie for bread. You know, I can
It's
sell that
not a
as an
one
ebook.
size fits all. Everybody's
Right.
so different, and
And they're in
everybody has
different
their
parts of the
own
world.
genetics, and you have to tailor everything to the specific person. Of course, I completely agree with that.
Yeah, so yeah, I think I'm gonna bring somebody else in.
Yeah,
Um,
great talking.
thank yeah, thank you for coming on. Um,
Oh, hey.
hello.
Hey, what's going on? Greetings from Brooklyn, New York.
Oh, hey, how's it going? You on way different place than I am.
Yeah, where are you based?
Oh, I'm in Hawaii.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah. So yeah, my thought connected to what you said earlier. I recently had my first hunting experience up here, and it
Okay.
was interesting to learn that the animals that I think of are wild, like turkeys,
Hmm.
are eating the GMO grain that the people put out. So
Mm.
it's like I think I'm hunting a wild animal, but it's actually a wild animal that is
They're
eating.
baiting them with
Yeah,
GMO grain. Yeah.
yeah. So it was interesting for me to learn that the organic farmers were actually keeping things cleaner than what I think of as wild animals. Just wondering.
Right, right, right. So it's like you have a more controlled situation, you know, when you're kind of doing animal husbandry as opposed to like a wild animal. You don't know where it's getting into or what food it's eating, and that could be like you said, you know, somebody's GMO feed. um yeah, I think that's a great point to bring up. And goes back to awareness. You kind of got to be aware of what's in your particular environment. Um, and just to realize also that pretty much by now, like a lot of the earth has been tainted, you know, so even the water supply and all that. So
Yep.
we just have to do the best that we can. But for me, it kind of goes back to the relationship with the land and being the most primordial, important thing that we can foster once again, because if we have that, then I think that we can make do, you know, because we'll be able to use and have the skills to survive and exist, coexist with the ecology, you know. So for me, that's very important because, like I said, like a lot of the earth has already kind of been tainted, and it's going to take time to heal a lot of these things.
Yep.
So I do see a place for like animal husbandry, you know, because of the things that you're saying, and also because of the fact that a lot of wild spaces don't exist anymore, you know. So that habitat is going to take time to grow back again if it ever does, you know, with the current system. But so in the process, like you have to realize, like a lot of North America used to be grasslands, and they used to, you know, they used to be ruminant animals feeding off of that. It might have not been cows, but it was a ruminant animal, you know, the bison, the buffalo. But so it's like you can say, well, like now we're going to use the cows instead of the buffaloes because we're just adapting to the situation, but we're kind of replicating something that already would have existed in a way, you know. So that's why like I'm not against um like grass fed free range animals, because I think that it has a role, you know, in a place.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I totally hear you. And also, regarding plants, I used to work with a farmer who treated the plants as sentient beings, and I would
Hmm.
have to ask permission. Like if I was going to pull a leak or something like that, I'd have to ask the plant, like, are you ready to give your life to nourish me? And
Mm,
approaching like all creatures, whether it's you know a leek or a mushroom or a bird, like any living
yeah,
being sacrificing itself to nourish me for another day in this world.
right. And I think that that's another thing that we're kind of highlighting here, is that a lot of the standards that are placed on animals don't get placed on the other kingdoms of life. And I think that that's not sacred and in keeping with traditional life ways, you know, because being close to the land, you would have saw everything as your relative, as your as its own non-human person type of thing, you know. So it's like we fail to have that reverence for plants, or a lot of people I say fail to have that reverence for plants, but they'll demand it when it comes to animals, and that's just the whole hierarchy thing that we discussed earlier about, putting different animals on different places of that hierarchy.
Yeah, true. All right. Well, thank you. It was great to meet you, and let's take care of the whole.
Yeah, nice talking to you. Peace. All right. I don't even know if I want to do one more person. Not. What time is it? Oh shoot. Okay, I gotta go. It's plus people aren't gonna see this if it's 2 hours long. They're probably already not gonna see it. But I'm glad the people that were in here came in here. So yeah, I'm just gonna cut it off. But I'm really grateful. I think this was a great conversation. I'm gonna leave this up as a live, and then I'm gonna upload it to YouTube. So on YouTube, you can watch it without having to be on the app. Um, but yeah, I'm really grateful for this conversation, and I really feel that it made an impact in a positive way, so that we don't have to battle each other or try to defeat one another, but that we realize that we're all here having this experience and trying to make sense of it, and we all have this intention of wanting to do the right thing, but how that manifests might be different for each person, but still we can have discussions about it in a way that is conducive and that brings harmony and understanding to everybody involved. So thank you so much for coming on here, and we'll do this again sometime. I'm sure there'll be another video where people completely are triggered, because triggering is a good thing. It allows us to see the things that we need to address. So I'm thankful for that. See you guys next time. All right, stay balanced.